What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe.
And Amy.
Review. And apologize for the different set. We're in a little bit of a transition between two sets right now. We will get it under control soon. But we are here today, as you can tell from the title down below, to talk about another Aether Revolt story, the second Aether Revolt story, called Quiet Moments. This one focusing on Gideon. Our quick review in the beginning, if you have not gone and read it yet. Yes, I would say go read it.
Yeah.
It's not very long.
No, it's not. I was a little disappointed at how short it was, actually.
Yeah. It helped to set up where we're going, and I think once we get into the review itself, I think that the storytelling of it was done very well. I just think that the content within the story was a little lacking this time. Yeah. So I would say go read it. Again, we don't do summaries here, we do reviews, so we're not going to find out what happened with us. I mean, you will, just from what we're saying, but you're not going to get the full breadth of it from us. So
read it first.
I recommend going to read it for yourself. There is one piece of art in particular, I think, as well, that's definitely worth your time looking at, with Jason Tezzeret. Really, really good. So I would definitely say you should go take a look at that as well. But yeah, I would read the story. Like I said, it's not a long one. It's worth your time. So for those of you that are still here, in terms of the review itself, yeah. Content-wise, interesting. When I heard the kind of the overarching what the story was going to be about, my first thought was, okay, interesting. It should be good, but I don't know why they're giving us an intellectual story focused around Gideon. Because the way that it was billed, if you will, the story was described as, okay, Gideon is toying with whether or not to fight against the consulate. Because fighting against the consulate is kind of the gatewatch coming in and dealing with individual planar politics. And that's not their job. And Gideon's, I think, is absolutely right in that opinion.
Yes.
And is saying, sure, Pia is great and is Chandra's mom, but just because she's Chandra's mom doesn't mean she just gets the gatewatch at her disposal to fight against the government.
Mean that they have any business interfering in that whole mess, especially when they're pretty unfamiliar with the plane or what the consulate has even done wrong.
Right.
Realistically. I mean, they're aware, sort of the fact that, Chandra, they're aware of why Chandra is so upset with the consulate.
Because of what the consulate did to her parents.
Right.
But they're also renegades, or were renegades.
Right. So there's a lot of, other aspects of the reason behind Chandra and Pia not liking the consulate. And that's not necessarily anything that they need to be getting involved in.
It's true.
And Chandra's basically like, well, you're my friend, so you're going to help me, right? And it's like, well,
But I just thought that it was interesting that with that being the focus of the story, I was like, this is great. We're going to get discussions with each individual person, talking about, with Gideon about why this is what they should or shouldn't be doing.
Right.
Maybe there will be a vote of some kind, or maybe Gideon just going and talking to all these people will get that answer from all of them.
Right.
And instead, it was maybe the first, quarter to half of the story.
Yeah.
And then the rest was something else, which wasn't bad, mind you, but
it just wasn't what we were expecting.
Right. I was ready for them to delve further into it. Now, I can also see, this is just the kind of guy that I am. I could see people saying, well, that's boring. They just sat around and talked the whole time. So I can see both sides. I can see the other side where people might think that that's just boring. And the second half was not as boring, I don't think, if that's what people think it was. I don't think it was, but it wasn't the same theme of let's discuss the ethics of this decision.
Right.
It was, I'm gonna fight. You know, we're fighting and we're running and we're on the run, and we got to see Saheeli Rai, we got to see Ajani, Pia, you know, like, again, a lot of name drops.
Yeah.
But this time they actually spoke. You know, last time it was just kind of references. This time,
here's this person.
right? This time they actually
Wait,
spoke.
So where's that person?
Right.
They're not actually in the story. Okay.
Right. Now,
Right.
Gideon and Liliana, there was a part between the two of them, which was cool. Again, could have been expanded upon a little bit more, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because that's something that they've played up so much, is Liliana's straight up hatred of Gideon. She makes fun of him all the time, all this other stuff, and like, I wanted to see more. Now, maybe that's on purpose. Maybe they're like, okay, we're gonna get into that, not right now, we're just gonna give you a taste, and then we're moving on. And if so, perfectly done, because it left me wanting more. But I don't know. I don't know where we're going from here with that, in terms of that interaction. Gideon did end this story with allowing Liliana to go off and confront Tezzeret with just Saheeli Rai, which is an odd decision to have made, I think. Because Saheeli even said, I'm a little confused, Saheeli said, I can do it with one or two other people. And then Gideon said, okay, take Jace. And Gideon then says later on that Jace looks relieved when Liliana instead steps up. And my question immediately was, why not take both of them? She specifically said one or two.
And when you read that, I was sitting there going, oh, Liliana is volunteering because she wants to hang out with Jace. Except, no.
No, and it's really because Liliana wants to kill Tezzeret.
Right.
Which, of course, Gideon says to her, Liliana, do the right thing.
Right.
Which is hilarious because Gideon even says to himself, can I trust you, can I not? And then kind of is like, whatever, just go. You know, because he's on the spot. And it was rough.
But that was an opportunity for him to say, go with somebody else and the two of you do it together.
But it's not a member of the Gatewatch, it's Saheeli Rai. Gideon doesn't know her at all.
I know, that's the point. She said
one
or two people.
I gotcha.
There was plenty of opportunity there for him to send another person too, since he doesn't know Saheeli and he doesn't trust Liliana.
Right.
Like, he could have sent another person and, you know, maybe Jace would have felt a little bit more okay since Liliana would be there to help him.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. We got like a brief glimpse. I don't know that they properly showed us before this story how close Gideon and Chandra were. Maybe it was in the stories before the kind of heavier focus into...
I think it was implied more than spoken.
But regardless, like, they said, like, oh, Gideon, you know, Chandra was like, oh, Gideon's my close friend, and they said, like, Gideon is so close to Chandra. I don't know that we've seen that enough. Again, since the refocus on stories following Magic Origins. If it was from before that, we still are going to have to get into those stories, and that's fine. But
please leave it in the comments.
Yeah, let us know
if
you know. Yeah, because it seemed odd where you were telling me, not showing me. Last week, they did a great job of showing us, not telling us, and I love that. What I will say is, Michael Yi Chow wrote this story. And, again, like I said, I liked this story a lot. This is by no means, in my opinion, a negative review of the story. I think the content was a little light, but I think the storytelling was done very well. I enjoyed, if we're getting technical, I enjoyed the time delineation. I enjoyed the way that
that had quite a flow this time.
Yes.
That I can't say for any other story, really.
Yes.
Every time you said the passage of time occurred, it felt less choppy
Mhm.
than any other time.
And because
Any other time that we've read a story, I feel like.
Because in the past it's been, passage of time, and it's just a line, which is an appropriate storytelling method to show passage of time. It is. But then when you start reading again, you have to say, okay, but how much time has passed? And you have to get it from the context clues of what you are going to continue reading, because sometimes it's just, we're on a 2-day journey, and so it's a couple of hours later now, and something else happens. And other times it's, we are, at the end of one paragraph, it's like, we're going to be fighting next week. And then there's a line, and then it's like, to get ready for today's fight, and it's like, okay, so now a week has passed.
Right.
This time it flat out said, a day later, a few hours later, days later, like it spelled it out. And there were parts that showed and not told in this story, which I appreciated, because it showed us through conversation that it had been a few weeks since the confrontation with Tezzeret, which I don't think the time was as clear in last week's story in terms of how much time had passed. Now they flat out told us it's been a few weeks, which is kind of a long time considering that that's how long they've been there. And that's Gideon kind of thinking to himself, okay, it's been a few weeks, this is what's been going on. And sure, who's he thinking that to? Us, the readers. Fine. But I appreciated that during the conversation between Gideon and Liliana, they were able to say, like Gideon was like, I have Jace doing this, and I have Nissa doing this, and Yeheni doing this, and that's what they're doing. And and Liliana throws back and tells us what Ajani is doing, and so all of these things are being told to us through an argument.
Yeah.
And they're arguing, which is important, right? Those two argue all the time. But it's a way to tell us without spoon feeding it to us and without basically Gideon saying, to you the reader, I will say that
Right.
these things are happening. They didn't do that.
Yeah,
It's
a way to avoid narration, basically.
Yes, but again, I want to compliment Michael Yi Chow for that, because I love that. I love when a story can appropriately tell you the things that have been going on between the lines delineating passage of time, or between the stories. Because if they showed it all to us, we'd be here for hours reading. And it would be boring as sin. Instead,
I don't know.
It depends.
I still enjoy it.
Well, it depends, right? Because if all it is Gideon saying, I want you to do this, and I want you to do this now, and I want you to do... That's boring. On the other hand, I appreciated the fact that they were able to properly spell out to us where we're going next, right? I think that this was a great way of ending this story. Again, if they weren't going to give us more, because Amy and I were left wanting more, as we kind of always are, but we think that this was because there wasn't as much this time.
There wasn't enough meat to the story.
In our opinion, of course.
It was kind of leading up to meat, and then that was at the end
Right.
of the story.
So there's that. But if that was all they were going to give us, totally fine. They did a good job of ending it because it ended with people going in different directions. And so now next week's story can be checking on Ajani. And the week after can be checking on Jace, and then Chandra, and then Nissa. So you can spread out the stories that way for Aether Revolt and have that be what's happening. And I like...
And then you can think to yourself, meanwhile, in between each one.
Right, and are these things happening at exactly the same time? Are they not? I also like the plans that are being hashed out. Liliana and Saheeli are going after Tezzeret. And they're going after Tezzeret, like Saheeli's going, because Rashmi's there. So Saheeli wants to save Rashmi, Liliana wants to kill Tezzeret. Two very distinct wishes or desires or plans, but they're both going to the same place.
Right. And hopefully accomplishing it.
The one thing I didn't like, and maybe I didn't understand it, but like I said, I wanted to hear more about, or I wanted there to be more discussion with Gideon on what the Gatewatch is, what their responsibilities are.
Right.
And
I
because...
feel like they kind of hinted at, like, if they had a list of rules or if they have certain things that they stand for. They just kind of hinted at it and
Well,
they didn't really explain it to us fully.
and it's important because they're a new group. And so, and important in their world because they need to define what they are. They need to define, they're not like...
Yeah, and it's not worth having the Gatewatch if they're not able to stand unified on what it is that they were even founded for.
Right.
I mean,
Well, but they weren't, right, and they need to make sure that they don't just become like mercenaries or they don't become just in it for their own interests and for themselves, which is what the threat is with helping Chandra. And Gideon is aware of that. That's the whole point of the story. But at the end, when Gideon is splitting people up to go in different directions, one of the things that he does is he points towards himself and he's like, well, I'm going to fight the consulate. It's like, but you just talked about the fact that that doesn't make sense.
yeah.
You, in the beginning of this story, debated whether or not it made sense to work with Dovin and the consulate and try to convince them of how crazy and awful and evil Tezzeret is.
Yeah.
And instead, now by the end, you're just like, whatever, let's fight him. And there really wasn't, I guess there was a discussion with Chandra, but he didn't end that discussion by saying, you're right, Chandra, I agree with you.
Okay, I'll fight Tezzeret then. Or I'll fight the consulate.
Right.
Because that sounds like a great idea.
Right. He agreed through the discussion with Chandra and with Liliana. Gideon always, even from the beginning before discussing with them, always agreed that Tezzeret was the threat. Gideon tried to figure out why he was the threat or what he did.
Right, because...
Talking to Liliana and
still, I
didn't
think it
get
really
much of an
is
answer.
just proving, like, it's just trying to show how much faith Gideon has to put in the other members of the Gatewatch, because he really doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he is the leader, I guess, enough to be the one doling out the responsibilities, but he doesn't know the importance of the responsibilities. He doesn't know exactly what they're trying to accomplish with those responsibilities.
Right.
And what they're trying to prevent with those responsibilities. And so it's really just a way to show how much trust he needs to put in the other members of the Gatewatch. And hopefully that will go on to a story where we really see how that was important.
Right.
Because if it's just a story that's kind of standalone and we don't have the sort of wrapping up of it, then we won't, then it'll be missing something. It won't have the conclusion. And the conclusion, everybody after reading that is probably going to assume that I mean the conclusion of the fight. But I obviously, from this statement, mean that the conclusion will be Gideon learning the importance of trusting everybody in the Gatewatch and what that can accomplish despite what he doesn't know about whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot to come. There's a lot that we know about the future and a lot that we don't know about the future. Some of the cards have already been spoiled. As I said, and I understand that it wasn't difficult to have figured out, but as I correctly guessed, Ajani and Tezzeret are the two planeswalkers in this set. That was kind of, once we knew the story of Kaladesh, pretty easy to see that would be what Aether Revolt was going to be. We don't know how it resolves. Will Tezzeret be killed? Will he run away? Will he have his mind wiped? We have no idea where that's going. Will he succeed in utilizing Rashmi's invention in some way?
Right.
What is that way? What is he trying to do? of course there are terrible implications for
Right.
using a transporter or a teleporter or whatever you want to call it, a matter transporter like that,
Right, but
that can be
there's-
very dangerous.
Right, but there's also a lot of different ways it can go.
Yes, and
There's a
but
lot of sort of good ways that they can maybe try and use it. There's a lot of really bad ways
Right.
it could go.
And-
there's a lot of middle ways it could go.
and
so-
with it in Tezzeret's hands, none of them are going to be those good ways.
Yeah.
None of them are going to be those good ways. It just depends on how bad. And
Right.
but we also know that Amonkhet is coming. Amonkhet is Nicol Bolas's home world, or the world that he rules over.
So if we think things are bad now,
Right.
they're only going to get worse.
And so, but we also know that Gideon and Jace are seemingly going to be the main focus there, which again makes sense. You had Chandra and Nissa here. You had Liliana in the last one.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean in terms of their cards.
Right.
So they were in they were in this set and the last set. You need a Gideon and a Jace kind of as the cycle through, just because it seems like that's going to be the status quo now, which is
Right.
fine. But we'll get to see those two as
Well, this one's only going to have a Johnny and Tezzeret. I mean, neither of those technically are in the Gatewatch.
correct.
So.
Well, no, but
It's
it's
a
each
little
it's each
off-kilter
block.
there.
It's each block though, because in the I mean I guess you had Liliana in Eldritch Moon versus Jace in Shadows over Innistrad. So
And hopefully we'll go on to see a Johnny make an oath.
I don't know about that. I think he might be friendly with the Gatewatch, clearly, but I don't see him making an oath, just because of the fact that then you have like a million people, because Saheeli would presumably do the same thing. You know what I mean?
No.
It just okay.
No.
All right.
No.
I don't see a Johnny making an oath. Maybe he does. Let's see which one of us is right. Do you think that you agree with
Hopefully I'll
Amy?
agree.
You agree with me? What do you think? Let us know in the comments down below. As always, we want to hear from
Yes.
you guys as well and your theories and stuff.
Or maybe you think Saheeli Rai would make a much better oath taker than a Johnny for some reason. Leave that in the comments too.
She had some pretty cool powers today. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean-
Watching her make the two little automatons and the big automaton fight the other big automaton.
I don't know. I think those things are useful in Kaladesh, but I don't see how she would be great for, fighting crime on other planes. I just don't see it. But we'll see what happens.
I also wanted to point out, because I know we're winding down a little bit in our analysis, but I also wanted to point out that I thought that it was interesting that in this story there was a lot of humor, or I will even say attempts at humor. Some of the jokes I think fell a little flat. They were funny, but they were not. I think I'm just spoiled because last week was rip-roaring funny in certain spots.
Notice the comedy, so sorry about that.
But that
If it was supposed to be funny, I apologize that I didn't get it, or I'm sorry to say that you're bad at comedy.
wow, that's just mean. I don't think anybody's bad at comedy. I think it was not as funny, and you have that kind of conflict sometimes with some stories lend themselves to being funnier than others. Some writers tend to be funnier than others.
Yeah,
And like I said, last week, I think Allison did an insanely good job at being really funny,
Yeah.
but also being able to transition from funny
Right,
to
to
not
serious
funny to
moments
funny,
where- yeah.
and back and
it
forth.
It was very flawless at helping you figure out, okay, this is a funny moment, this is a very serious moment, so, it helped keep you on track.
Yes. But
And that's important in a story too. If you're gonna have important stuff mixed in with comedy, you gotta have just a flawless way of getting from one to the other, so that it doesn't, so that the whole story doesn't end up seeming comedic, even though it really wasn't.
But I think the takeaway that I'm gonna take away,
Leave
from
them with?
this story, the takeaway that I have from this story is the interaction and the conversation between Gideon and Liliana. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was just a taste because that's all we're getting right now,
Yeah.
and we're gonna get more in the future. There's
And
almost no
You
question.
guys at Wizards, you better do it, because if you don't, I will come there and I will punch you.
She won't. She won't. We don't have money for
We
plane
live
tickets
far
to
away,
Seattle.
but
But anyway.
I'll do it somehow.
No.
We'll take a very, 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 very long train ride.
Wow. That's commitment. So now you guys have to do it. No, I'm fully aware that it's coming. This was an amazing taste at it and a good lead-in to what will happen in the future. Like I said, I loved that interaction between the two of them. I think it worked out really well. So, and there was also that moment with Gideon and almost telling his backstory to Chandra, because he kind of hinted at it and Chandra saw that there was something there. That's been kind of the theme of Kaladesh and Aether Revolt, is hinting at your backstory to the other members of the Gatewatch, but not really saying it.
Yeah, and I think it'll be really cool to see the evolution of the Gatewatch, to really see their relationships develop, and to kind of get to be there for those moments where the different members of the Gatewatch trust each other and care about each other enough to tell each other their backstory, because as much as people will probably be sitting there reading it going, yeah, we know this already, it'll be cool to see the moment when that happens. It'll be cool to see the person they tell first.
Well,
and stuff like that, because that'll tell us a lot about the relationships that occur in the Gatewatch.
right. But I will also say that I don't necessarily, I'll disagree slightly. I don't necessarily think that people reading it will find it to be repetitive when they tell their backstory if it's written correctly.
Yeah.
Because if you tell it the right way, if they tell their backstory the right way, and if the story is written the right way, it will not seem repetitive, because maybe that member of the Gatewatch will give more insight into how they feel now because of what happened. Or
right, as a result, or it'll be more immersive, because
correct.
you'll maybe they'll write it in such a way where you're kind of more in their point of view,
Yeah, it all depends,
It
and
can
we
go lots of ways.
will get there. But I do agree with you that I am looking forward to seeing who they tell first. I'm also looking forward to seeing how that gets integrated into the rest of the story, because if they're all just sitting around at a table after a big fight and they're like, wow, Gideon's just like, wow.
let's go around the table and
Yeah.
tell our bastories. Like, that would be the worst.
Literally the worst. And I can't imagine that they would do it that way, but I'm just saying, like, I think that's worst case scenario is, Gideon's just like, you guys are the best, and, you guys aren't like my friends, the irregulars who all died when I did this, and Jesus is like, oh, really? Well, this happened to me, and Liliana says, oh, well, like, that would just be terrible.
That would just be terrible.
Just the
So,
worst.
If you guys had, like, a rough draft of that written up, please just respectfully discard that.
Wow.
I'm saying it in the nicest way possible.
There's almost no way. I apologize in advance if that was something that you were thinking of writing and now we have just kind of poo-pooed all over it, but it sounds awful. So
Right.
please don't do that.
The only thing that's going to make listening to everybody's backstory again worthwhile is to see how one character interacts with another character and see those relationships form, see that bond of trust, see who does it to who, kind of a thing, see the moment when that occurs, because
Yes.
certain things have to happen before somebody's going to just say, oh, I trust you enough to tell you my whole life story.
Yes.
And those moments that create that trust are what's going to be the interesting part of the story. So
Well, and not only do you...
please don't decide that those aren't important.
Well, not only do you need to have the trust, but you also need to have the moment that's right to tell it. Because you're not going to be like, I trust you, my friends all died. You know, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It would have to be a moment similar to Gideon and Chandra in this story, where it was the right moment, where Gideon said, you know, where he could teach her something by telling her about his past.
Right.
And we will see where that goes in the coming weeks, in the coming months, in the coming years.
I'm excited.
Of these stories. I don't want next week's story to just be Gideon getting over his fear and telling Chandra about it. I think getting the taste of it is exactly what we needed. Moving on to something else. We will see where we go next week. We kind of have the battle lines drawn in terms of who's going where and what's next.
That's what this story was good for.
Yes. Well, and again, I'm taking away the interactions between Gideon and Chandra, and more so Gideon and Liliana. I loved that the most personally. I hope you guys loved this video. Let us know what you thought of this video in the comments down below. If you did like it.
Hopefully it didn't sound too critical.
Look.
Because I liked the story, I swear.
I did too, and we said that at the beginning, and I still think that holds true. What did you guys think of the story? Let us know what you thought of the story in the comments down below. You can also let us know your thoughts on this video, the stories in general, all these videos, this series on Facebook and Twitter.
Previous videos, if you're like, hey guys, I forgot this, but this review reminded me. Go ahead and leave it in the comments.
Yeah. Facebook and Twitter, those links are down in the description box below. You can subscribe to find out when more of these reviews come out, as well as other stories. In fact, can you grab that over there? Just step off camera and grab that. I'm going to be filming this. It's a gift box. It's a gift box opening. I'm going to be filming these. So stay tuned to the channel for this as well. You can subscribe and you'll be able to see this. I said these because there is at least one other one over there. So definitely subscribe. You will see openings like these. You will see other openings on our channel. I opened some prize packs. Maybe I'll link that at the top. This will be coming out soon. So like I said, if you subscribe, you'll find out when this video comes out. You can see all of our other videos. You can go to the channel and check that out. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of JaAR. Please continue to show off your
#Porthos-Pride.
From the Geek for All YouTube channel, I've been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.